So welcome everyone to Cinema Tropical's Music and Film Brazil. I'm Mary Jane Marcassiano, programmer of the series. We launched the series in 2009 to highlight Brazil's best music documentaries. This year's edition is virtual, and it's co-presented with Brazil Summerfest, the Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies at NYU, and additional support from H. Campos. I want to thank Petrit Pula, Omar do Halre, and Elio Campos for their support. So tonight we're going to have a conversation with Lula Buarque de Hollanda, the director of Gilberto Gil Anthology Volume 1, and NYU scholar Dylon Robbins. Lula Buarque de Hollanda is a filmmaker and producer living in Rio. After completing his MA in cinema from New York University, he co-founded the film production company Conspiração, and is currently co-director with Leticia Monchi of the production company Espiral. His latest documentary, O Moro, is on the impeachment of Dilma Rousseff. I just have to mention that everybody involved in this panel is, and Carlos from Cinema Tropical, we're all NYU alums or current, which is kind of, and also, Lula, you studied with Bob Stam, right?
That's it.
Yeah. So Lula is not far into our series. We've shown 2 of his films already in past series: The Mystery of Samba, featuring Marissa Monchi and the Portela Samba School, and Tempo Hey on Gilberto Gil. So Lula is joining us tonight from Rio. Dylon Robbins is an associate professor at New York University's College of Arts and Science, and has published and researched on the cinema and music of Brazil and Cuba, among other Latin American subjects. And he's joining us tonight from Florence. Dylon and I met at a King Juan Carlos event. I guess must have been a Brazilian music screening. And we were talking, very avidly about Brazilian music. And so here we are tonight. But I just recently asked Dylon how he became involved with Brazilian culture, and he answered through the music. And I have exactly the same experience. And that really proves my theory that Brazilian music is the gateway for so many non-Brazilians to form a deeper relationship with the culture. And so we're going to talk about that and many other things. And I'll turn it over to Dylon and Lula. Thank you, guys.
Wow. Yeah, thank you, Mary Jane and Carlos, for the invitation to participate. It's really a pleasure. I thoroughly enjoyed seeing your film, Lula, and I also want to extend my gratitude towards you for the volume 1 of this film. And as I watched it, I just, I thought about other Brazilian films on music, but then also other Brazilian documentaries that came to mind. And I just was, really taken by the level of intimacy and contact that you developed between, the camera and Gil in the interview segments of the film that were spliced between all the really great archival footage that you shared with us. Thank you. It was really a really great film with a very moving conclusion, right? Finale, which brings me to a question that I had that I wanted to ask you, along with a whole list that I have. So you'll just pardon if it seems I've become like very, I don't mean to give you the sense that I'm interrogating you at all, but it really provoked a lot of questions and thoughts. So I guess the first one is, the title itself as a volume 1, it seems to announce that there's going to be a volume 2 or other volumes. And so I didn't know if maybe you could just tell us a little bit more about the future of the project that you're seeing, since it seems to be announced from the title. Yeah, I didn't know. Yeah.
What happens is that the first film I did with Gil was in 1996. So there's a while already that we've been working together. And the first one was about his life. We really entered to the city that he was born. we did a lot of memory, working more on his memories. So this time, what I thought is that I really would like to do a kind of devotion film. It's a film that I read for people that really love Gilberto Gil. And one of the ideas I had is that was to show the complete music, because I think music industry is through a process that's changed a lot. And you don't see more albums. You don't see more like it was yesterday. Now you just listen on Spotify. You mix, you have an algorithm that gives you. So I invented my own logarithm. This songs that I liked from Gilberto Gil on the very first beginning of his career. And my idea was to do a research where I find the video version oldest from the time that the song was composed. So I'll give you an example. Aquele Abraço was a song that was composed on the day that he went out from prison. He was in prison. He tells that story in the film. That was 68 or 69. I think it's January 69. And the oldest version I found, it was from 86. Because Brazilians are not like the Americans, that Americans film everything all the time. The Brazilian, I think, now started to film more. So that was the idea for the film, doing this research to find the pearls, the gems, that the oldest as possible. And the idea was, when I was finishing the film with the budget I had and everything, I realized that I could not, I did not have all his work in the film. And everybody was going to ask me, where is that song that I like so much? Yeah. How can I do, how come you did not put this song in the film? That was the idea, so volume 1. But nowadays, Brazil has a lot of problems financing films because of the federal government and everything. So I have the project to do volume 2, but I'm not working. I'm trying to get the money for volume 2. And 2, actually, my project has 3 more volumes. Because this first volume is just songs composed by him, sung by him. So the 3 first ones are going to be like that. Songs made by him, and the 4th volume will be Gil singing songs from other composers, because he's a great interpreter also.
Sure. Yeah. That's one of the things that I really liked about the organization of film is it's a kind of artistic biography, and just coincidentally I was rereading a book by a music critic about John Coltrane and the history of his sound, where he. There are biographies of John Coltrane, right? But there's not really a book that sort of traces the evolution of his artistic, development, or the transformation of his, aesthetic sense over time. And it was sort of odd to suddenly see this film and see a similar type of, telling the story of his life, but through his music, which I really enjoyed. And you mentioned the last part on Aquele Abraço, right, where he has, and in fact, there's that moment. I almost wanted to do a screen grab and have a share here, but I wanted to kind of keep this more like we would do this in person, where I wouldn't necessarily be like, oh, here's this scene. But there's that one moment where you have a real close up on his hands as he's kind of, twisting his hands, and it's like a moment where you don't hear the pain in his voice, but you see this gesture, right? That communicates a certain complexity and intensity of experience of being imprisoned, as you mentioned. And then getting out, what he said was like quarta-feira de cinzas. It was like Ash Wednesday, right after Carnival. And he gets out, and only at that moment does he discover what aquele abraço meant or something. Was that how the story went exactly? And so
the guards, the soldiers were talking between them before he went out. Aquele abraço, it was something from a TV show. No?
The TV show, right. And he didn't realize it.
It was completely new.
And it's really powerful because it almost speaks to the extent of his isolation and how traumatic that experience must have been, right, for him. Yeah. I just thought that was a really moving part of the film, really unexpected too, to where, you know, there was, again, that counterpoint between the interview segments and the archival footage, which for me, the archival stuff too, I was just like, wow, that's really amazing. And there's a richness to the interview material where it's not just about kind of explaining the archival stuff, but rather it complements it in this counterpoint that was really, really
Yeah.
moving.
My idea was, we had him in the studio, and then I showed him the archive footage. And what I would like to have was the emotion that he had seeing that archival footage.
Mm-hmm.
So he could speak about the idea of the song, or he could speak about the circumstance, about some. I did not have a specific target for him to talk about. I just would like the first memory that came to his mind. And I thought that was very rich, because he's like my hand here, you know, he's all the time. And I had very close-ups, because I mean, he's 80 already, almost 80, and his expression, his eyes still are glowing. And it was, so that was the idea for the interview. It was not an interview to explain. It's really the first emotion that comes after he sees the archival footage.
Yeah, so that brings me to another question that I was you know, thinking through as I watched the film, and that was, and you alluded to it now, but I was wondering a little bit about the production process. You know, how involved was Gilles in deciding what to screen, or what songs to talk about, or was it really, you know, driven by the archival footage that you had found? What role did he have in the organization of the film, or the selection of the songs that you featured there? Zero. Okay.
That's my curatorial. He has 100% trust me. He trusts me and said, you are going to do the film. Whatever you do for me is fine. And he's completely open. And I really, when I do my films on music and everything, like I did one in Milton Nascimento, I choose the songs that I like the most. And then for sure, I asked for the archival research, certain songs. Some of them did not have what I could not buy, because some foreign material very expensive. But from what I could get from my budget, I really, just the songs that I really love and have a relation. That was completely my choice.
Oh, I see. So
that's good to have that confidence. I'm really happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, when you mentioned the level of confidence, I mean, it totally resonates with his comfort, right? I mean, he seemed really, you know, it was a very intimate conversation with him, and it was not at all stiff or cold or clinical. I mean, it was a very, you know, it was like a warm conversation. I think that really came through in the film, and I just, I really found that moving. So then he didn't have any input on the selection of the songs that were featured. Did he have any input later on? Did he see like a rough cut of the film? Or he was just like, here, take it and do it? And
take it and do whatever you want.
Oh, that's great.
He's my partner. No, his wife Flora is our co-production, and I sent the film for them, and it was, but you know, he really. And what I just would like just talk about one thing about the format, really, because the decision I had to put the complete song without cutting the song. You know, usually when you see musical documentaries, you have certain speed, you have rhythm, and you gotta cut. And then I try to invent, I would say, a new format for seeing a film that's the interpretation. He's almost 100% complete interpretation. What I would like really to get in the film is to get to his soul. To get, for example, there is Esotérico, that song, Esotérico from Gil. I found that he was before checking sound before the show. So there is one camera was shooting him, no lighting, but he was completely free and singing like he was in heaven. And I said, wow, I love this song. The imagetic quality wasn't great at all, but his interpretation was so deep, so fluent. I was really moved by the image.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and as I watched it, you just mentioned something too about how you made a choice to make sure and have the songs play in entirety all the way through without making any cuts. And I immediately thought of the at least, I'm not sure if it was the final version of it, but that was featured a number of years ago, the Nelson Pereira dos Santos documentary.
It has a reference.
Antonio Carlos Jobim, right?
Yeah.
Where that's one of those, where that is one in which that didn't happen.
That was my main reference.
It was? Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Letícia, who is one of the producers of the film, she produced also Nelson's filming for sure. I tried to do a film like it, but Gil doesn't have as much material as Tom Jobim has, and I did not have the same kind of money. I love this film so much.
Yeah. Well,
you see, let me give you an example. One for this film, Nelson Pereira's Garota de Ipanema. He used like 10 different versions. One in Japanese and another in Italian, and then he really got like a road spirit of the most important song for the life. That was a reference, but then when I realized I could not do it exactly, I went to a different format.
Yeah. Well, I think whereas his was strictly archival. I mean, you have the interviews, right? So
that's true.
I mean, it's, I mean, I can see the echo there in a way, or I can hear the echo there, but then at the same time, I think what the interviews bring to the archival footage is something that's really, that, like I said, intimate, right? I mean, I think archival stuff, it can be really interesting, especially the way, it can be organized in terms of, sequenced or sometimes overlap, etc. But like when there was the interviews, they really brought a level of warmth to the archival material that I don't think, but it's not possible with the Nelson Pereira dos Santos film for obvious reasons, right? I mean, not unless he was gonna, psicografar.
But he could have used all the interviews. No.
Yeah, that's true.
With another speaking about the song, but he really decided to do just music.
Yeah. No, that's great.
He has for sure it was an inspiration.
Yeah. Well, I also thought that's interesting that since we're on the topic of Nelson Pereira dos Santos, because I also, and again, this is a connection to your family, but I also thought about his Raízes do Brasil film, in which it's just interviews telling the story of Lula Buarque de Hollanda. And there's not a whole lot of archival stuff there, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I saw that film, but yeah.
It's more interviews, That's true.
Yeah, that's great. So
I would love to use this format to do another artists.
Really?
I would love to, but I don't know. I don't know how things are really strange in Brazil nowadays, so gotta wait a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, thinking is it? I mean, just thinking about your production company, Espiral. Is it? Are you seeing? Could you maybe talk a little bit more about the work that company has done and is doing, and maybe how the current situation in Brazil might be affecting that? Also, another question that comes to mind is, just the importance of archival work and creating documentaries of a historical nature, and just thinking about the crisis of the Cinemateca Brasileira right now, and just how, maybe that's too big of a question, but if you want to kind of take any part of that.
Now, what happens is I am one of the co-founders of Conspiracy Films, and I stayed there for more than 25 years, and I did some a lot of documentaries there, everything. So I decided to open another production company, which was smaller, for do more things related to art films. And the first film I did on this company is called O Muro, The Wall, which was a film about the Dilma's impeachment. When I started filming both sides, I'd like to do a film not from the left or from the right. I'd like to just to document what was going on. cinema verité style in a way, but with in the border of art and film, video art and film. I'm studying a lot of video art, doing some projects on that. So I did a lot of portraits from both sides, from pro-impeachment and against impeachment. And when I went to Brasilia to film the impeachment day, the police had built a wall in the middle of the Esplanada, Brasilia Esplanada, which was made by Niemeyer to be the place for congregation of the people, to be the place for celebrate the democracy. And for the first time in Brazilian history, there was a wall in the middle of the plaza. 300 people from one side, 300,000 people from one side, and like 100 people from Dilma's side. And then when I saw this wall, so that's the film, that's the title of the film that represents what Brazilian society is living right now. And then I went to Jerusalem and to Berlin to film two different societies who had lived this experience, like Berlin and like Jerusalem, Israel, are living right now this kind of situation. And the film is about that. So it's kind of portrait of this, it's a portrait of this moment. And it's interesting because I made it in 2017, 16, and already so much thing has changed. The political situation is much worse nowadays, and things are more radical. And I think this film is gonna age very, very well. And you see it in 100 days from now, you're gonna say, wow, what a moment Brazil was living. And then I did another other films, and I have some projects. We are developing some projects right now. And I'm doing a film about my mom, Lula Buarque de Hollanda, who is a great intellectual. So she's 81 right now. She's writing like 3 books a year, and the film is gonna be called From Counterculture Until Pandemic. So it's two important rupture moments, like from 68 until 2020.
Oh my!
It's one of the projects I'm working right now. I just filmed her. She loves to do being an architect also. She does a lot of obras. How do you say obras? She does a lot of works.
Works. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, architecture works related like that. And I was filming right now during lunchtime.
Oh, really? Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh. So thinking about the I guess the kind of scope of different subjects that you are interested in documentary, how are you seeing documentary in the present sort of crisis? I mean, a crisis in which you have new media forms that have emerged, the importance of social media, for example, but then also of digital media and the capacity for creating deep fakes, and just the whole way it's shifted sort of the truth criteria that seems to be operating in the public, and which has really transformed political discourse in a confusing and shocking way, I'd say. Just think about the legacy of not just Brazilian documentary, but just documentary film as a genre, right? What's the role of documentary in this present? I mean, are you feeling something in particular there, or yeah?
I always say what a script writer. How could we imagine that we're going to be living, Trump answering that question about white supremacy 2 days ago? Who was going to write the script, man? How can we imagine that? So I think reality is really powerful. It's giving us so much surprises. It's so hard to understand the human behavior. Mm-hmm. So if you just stay there with the camera, so many, and you have an eye, I think you're gonna get great stories. Like I love Tiger King, for example, at Netflix. What a TV documentary series. You saw this one?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sure.
It was #1 at Netflix for a while. So reality can really, and I
It's
think, go ahead.
no, no, it's just about to add is sufficiently exciting.
We thought our society was going to be modern, things are going to evolve, but we are almost going back to middle age. They're burning witches.
Yeah,
Yeah, my goodness, I don't know what's going to happen. So
yeah.
I think doing films nowadays is very important. It's very political, and it's really a weapon, doing films. So more than ever, we should keep doing it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just kind of hearing what you were mentioning about, reality is sufficient. Just representing reality is political in itself, if I understood correctly, right? Is what you were suggesting. Because it seems that there's a moment too in which, documentary filmmaking starts to turn the camera around a whole lot more and starts to really question the subjectivity of the filmmaker and question the capacity for the documentary film to even represent a reality, right? And it's really hard for me to feel excited about those kinds of projects in the present. Even though I understand and value them totally, and I learn from them, but there's something about the present that for me, I just know I'm. Yeah.
That trip that you go inside of some place that is very hot or a lot of mosquitoes is a trip that's good just when you go back home. Then you remember. So it's important to do the film right now for us to remember when we are out of this swamp.
Yeah.
Somebody gotta go to Bosnia, gotta go to Syria and film there for us. Like they're trying to deny the Holocaust did not exist anymore. There are a lot of films that is remembering us all the time. But when you're talking about subjectivity, I think there is no question about that. There is no subjectivity. There is always a subjectivity. There is always a point of view. No,
absolutely.
You gotta always. And that's important. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things. Were you about to say something?
Yeah, I perhaps we could talk a little bit about the music industry because it's interesting. Because in the 70s and the 80s, we are anxious waiting for the next Caetano Veloso album, next Miles Davis album. We are always waiting for the new great Roberto Carlos album. And nowadays, the music industry, from my point of view, doesn't have the same importance as it used to have.
Sure.
Let's say you're waiting more for the next Netflix series than Madonna's next album. That's a point of view that I think. What do you think about the importance of music? Because what has been done, like the classical rock and roll, Bob Dylan, Caetano, they have already done very important stuff that's still there. But the production nowadays, I feel that the people from like 15 years old, and they are not so much connected from that industry, like what the musicians are talking, saying.
Yeah, it's interesting what you were mentioning because just as I was watching some of the footage that's in the depicting Gil and some of the concerts, and thinking about from the vantage point of the immediate present of the pandemic, of social distancing, of just performance art, the performative arts, about music as an event, right? Even before it's recorded, I was really struck at how I think are very, even before the pandemic, just because of, streaming and because of media, digital media, how disconnected listeners can be from the whole idea of music as a performance, right? As an event. It's rather something that you just hear or see. It's not, you don't materially possess it. And I just think that's, really really striking difference between the present and the period, especially the 70s that you're mentioning with Gilberto Gil, right? Because there's that they're waiting for the album, and then there's also the show, right? There's the spectacle, the concert, right? And it's
great going there and change this energy, sing together, and feel all this vibration. It was great.
yeah.
That's an old thing that I don't know is gonna.
Yeah. Also, I was going back a little bit to like your own work in documentary. I was curious as to how you got started in making specifically music documentaries. Like, what brought you to that idea? And if you could talk a little bit more about your work with artists such as Janaína Chape, for example, and how that has influenced your documentary work.
What happens is when I went to NYU, I was working with Marisa Monte. I was her first manager. She was sister of my wife. And I was before the beginning of Marisa. And I was obsessed with documenting what was going to happen to that singer. So I produced a film on her and her first album, before her first album. And then I realized that there was no proper documentation of the Brazilian musicians in the 90s. Because there was no quality. Just Globo was filming the concert.
I'm sorry, Lula, I just have to interrupt you for a second. I'm so sorry. These are questions from the audience. I forgot to announce that they came in. I thought they were from crowd.
Yes.
Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry from the audience. I'm really sorry about that, audience. I'm really sorry. Please.
No.
Sorry for interrupting.
Well, what was the question again?
How did you get start making musical documentaries, and then also your work with artists, Janaína Chape. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. So when I went there to NYU and started doing my films, Marisa came when I was studying at NYU. She stayed at my place, and then I had met Arthur Lindsay at when Caetano Veloso was releasing his album. Which one? This Circulador, I think, or before Circulador. I went there a party. I knew Caetano a little bit. I did not know Arthur Lindsay. And then I said to Arthur, let's make a show at Knitting Factory with Marisa. Marisa did not know Arthur Lindsay at all. And then Knitting Factory, you know Knitting Factory at Hudson.
Sure, yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's a place for people that doesn't
Ciro
know.
Batista, absolutely, sure.
It's a
John Zorn.
Place for 40 people, 50 people, and then Marisa came, and then I brought the cameras from the NYU, and then we shot. Marisa did not research, any preparation with Arthur. They went to the stage, and Arthur doing this kind of guitar like crazy, and we're there filming. And then I said, okay, music industry has money. Let's start with money. And then I went back to Brazil and go to the record companies, and they are giving me money. MTV was entering Brazil. So that's why I started doing music, because the filming, and what I felt when I went back to Brazil was that the Brazilian film industry wasn't really established. I had the sensation we had to build everything, because there were no script writers. We had a lot of very good technical stuff, like DP, sound people, that because you're doing commercials, this kind of stuff. But the music industry was really powerful. So when I got back from NYU to Brazil, I did Gil, I did Caetano, we did Conspiracy, we did Chico, we did everybody. And they had money for us to do quality work. And then after that, we started doing commercials, basically, and start doing films. But the first moment was just music, really. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. We have questions coming in from the public. They're starting to show up here in the chat, and also those who are watching. If you'd like, you can post questions on the Facebook feed, and they'll also come through to us, and we can bring them through here. There was the question too. about your work with the artist Janina Chapi, for
Okay,
example.
I want to talk about
Yeah, yeah.
So, 2000, 2008, 2007, I start studying video art, and I got really interested in crossing my film language with art and this kind of stuff. And then I started producing a film with a very important gallery here in Brazil, that's Fortes Vilaça. And I went to speak with Marcia, she's the head of this gallery, to do a project about pornography. And she said, there is this international project called Districted, which is from a curator, I think he's Irish, Neville Wakefield. He had done a project mixing art and film. Matthew Bond, Marina Abramovic. It was for theater, mixing art and film. And Marcia said that Neville would like to do this project in Brazil also. And I said, okay, let's do it. So Marcia did the curatorial with Neville, and I was the producer for 10 films. So I did a film with Tunga, Márcio Chaves, Julião Sarmento from Portugal, and Janaína Chapi was one of them. And then Adriana Varejão also. We did a lot of, and I produced a lot of them. And the film from Janaína was very interesting. I like it very much. It's not available because it's an art piece and it's not in the internet. We tried to sell it, but nobody bought it in the last 10 years. But I love it very much. I'm going to tell you the story. So the film is called Point of View. The idea is to have the female point of view on a gangbang. Janaína's idea was to put a camera here on the third eye, and then you have this porn actress. She's in the mirror, and she's looking through the mirror, and she's saying, my friends are gonna come anyway, I'm so excited. It's the only time that you see her face, when she's looking at the mirror. And then the bell rings, and she's go look at her friends are coming. And then 3 guys making sex with her, and you don't see her face anymore. You just see her for a point of view, shooting whatever is happening. So that's a gangbang film. That's the first time that I filmed sex with intercourse with my view. I was the producer. I was there seeing and I became very good friend of Janaína. I love her very much. I spoke with her today, and she's a very good friend. And after that, she comes to Brazil. I go to her studio in New York. And after that, 3 years after that, she had a project to go to the Amazon. And I produced another video art that's called The Ghost in Between. We rented a boat in the up Rio Negro in the Amazon. And spent 10 days going down the river, sleeping on hammocks and stopping. And it's a great video art film also. I liked very much. It was a very good experience. And so I try to do that, is to produce films for artists. I learned very much, but it's something that commercially doesn't make very much sense. So it was a phase. I learned very much, and now I'm doing some video art. I have some projects. So I'm still in between this video art thing and documentaries, and I have some future projects also. That's my life.
Oh, I'm excited to hear. I want to see I don't know what you did with Tunga, but I would also be really curious to see that.
I can send you the link for you.
Okay.
For you.
Oh, thank you. So we have.
It's available in the internet because an art film and the art market has this kind of. Actually, Tunga's film is not so difficult to see because Neville Wakefield made a DVD for the English market. When he wanted to release it for the American market, there were some kind of laws that some of the films could not be shown in the US. So he asked Tunga to put his film in this DVD so you can find this American version of Districted has Tunga's film.
Oh, great.
So it's very nice. I like very much. international version also.
Lula, so we have a number of other questions that have been rolling in here. I want to ask you these too. So someone had asked if you could talk about your directorial decision to not add the names of the songs nor the years, presumably for those who might be less familiar with Gilberto Gil's work when they saw the film.
It has a lot to do with this kind of market that we're talking about. I really like for the person to have the feeling, to have the sensation, to get into his soul. Just feel it. Like you have this expression in Brazil, procure saber, go after it. If you really like it, see it again, do the research, try to find the lyrics in some other place. There is a place for you just to contemplate. It's like a church. It's a devotional church where you're gonna see our semi-god Gilberto Gil really do his prayer. Something like that. Because I really feel that I'm so blessed really to have this opportunity to live with, to have spent a lot of time with Gil. Like I did this film on Pierre Verger, and with the French photographer, and we went to Africa with Gil. I stayed like 15 days in Africa, and we went inside the interior of Benin, with that country that we shot, and we stayed in a $5 hotel, and Gil doesn't, he really gives himself when he's in the project. He gets very moved about the story. So that was my point, not putting, it was a very rational decision not to point the information. We have too many information. We really want to have the emotion instead of the information. And in the end, you can see it has all the
it has
song.
yeah.
You gotta really do the research.
Yeah. We have a question from Claudia Norman, who was hoping you might speak to. Well, she asks if the experience of a live concert is quite unique, and how difficult is it to capture that energy in a film?
Actually, interesting this question, because actually I did one. The only time I shot a concert that I had not seen was when I did a DVD for Gil on Bob Marley. When Gil had this project on Bob Marley, he had a sponsor. I don't remember exactly why. You had to film the concert before he went to Jamaica and recorded the album. So we had that concert that I had never seen that I had to shoot. And it's like a war. You have your cameras, you have the best snipers you can. You have your phone there, and go for it. Whatever comes is gonna be good, And then after in the editing, you get the best. When you can see the concert, plan the concert, and see how the lighting, and then you can really do like the storyboard of each song, where it's gonna be, shoot more than one time. Then you can really rationalize how you're gonna do it. But this experience was very interesting for me, and I like this DVD very much. It's called Kaya Nagandaya, which is the concert. I think I decided on this concert that I will never shoot concert anymore, because when I was doing the 90s, it was not so usual to film concerts with film in Brazil. And we did some, Caetano, Gil, other concerts. And the quality of the filming wasn't very good. But after MTV started doing those unpluggeds, the video quality went close to film. And then I said, okay, I don't need to do it anymore. Everybody is doing it, and that's the reason I decided not to do it anymore.
Oh, wow. We have a question from Eric Barroso, who has asked, how does Gil and his contemporaries, how do they feel about this retrospective? That is, looking back at this part in his life. Are they more focused on looking ahead, or do they feel that it is indeed very important to be looking at this material and documentation from 50 years ago?
I think it's a work that they are not doing. Somebody else should do it. You know, they are really open for proposals, but them are not. I mean, imagine how is it to take care of the 500 songs Gil has, lawyers, rights, editions in all over the world, dealing with Spotify, dealing with Apple Music, all the TVs in the world. They gotta have a structure to deal with this guy like Marisa, who is a very close friend. She spent a lot of time studying how Google was not paying her. Like Google stayed 10 years without paying nobody. That's why they made so much money. How are you going to create a law for them to pay us? Because they were saying, they were showing it in YouTube and there was no legislation at all. Spotify wasn't paying in the beginning. So they have already so much, the structure of them. They are doing this kind of work because it's like a painting, a Picasso painting. How much does it work? How much does it worth? How much does it worth aquele abraço? How much money? Where are you going to put it? Spotify or you can do that. He's still thinking about other songs and a lot of films people want to do with him and a lot of interviews, but I don't feel it's something that he himself is doing.
Wow. I mean, you're also alluding to something that for me has always been you know, or has been really prominent for me about Gil, and that's the Minister of Culture side of him, right? The Liberdade Digital, right? All of, you know, his initiatives when he was the Minister of Culture that really seemed inspired by and very enthusiastic about all the possibilities that the internet and streaming could bring. And then there's I guess the dark side of that, which you just mentioned. I mean, Spotify not paying artists, YouTube, Google absorbing. Now they are, right? But it's almost like there's just even the very figure of Gil as someone who is a champion, or I assume he still is, right? Of the digital, right? Of the possibilities of extending Wi-Fi into areas where people don't have telephones, and open license or open source software, Linux machines for every, this like really kind of, forward thinking initiatives. And that other feature of him, which makes me, really wonder too about, the future, not just the looking back, but also seeing the future of the music and the performance and just of culture and its status.
How am I going to maintain my songs in the world? No, because like Netflix doesn't show Fellini, doesn't show Antonioni, Almodovar, it doesn't show good films. You gotta go to okay, but there are other places that show.
Yeah.
Shows. Movie, I don't know. So different. Where am I gonna put my songs? Here. Gotta be there. Okay, there also. It's a very strategic decision because you can lose the pace. You can be out of the game. You can be forgotten.
Sure. Absolutely. There's another question from an audience member too that I wanted to share. That one was asking about your new production company, Espiral. I was asking if you could talk a little bit about that.
It's much more like an artist atelier. I really would like Conspiracy. It became so big, so close, almost like a global TV Globo. It's something really big, a lot of structure, a lot of things. So I really I wanted to go back and go to an arts atelier. Like I could do some video art. I can have a very small structure. And what I'm doing is I'm doing co-productions. For example, this project I have with my mom, I'm gonna do with Conspiração. I'm developing with them. So I would like to do, I'm working with different productions company, and I can just do the development. That's my goal. So I had a curator from this museum in Rio called MAR, Museum of Art of Rio. This curator called me and said, there is a scene in Pierre Verger films about egunguns. Egunguns are orishas, like African saints, that deals between death and life. He remembered this take and said, I would like you to do an artwork for the exhibition I'm doing right now. So I entered on the bruto, on the old footage of the Pierre Verger films, which I have with me. And I did a new edition for that, like a resignification. And I did an art piece for the museum. It just opened like 10 days ago. So that was possible because I have this kind of production company, which makes me more free. I have more space and more time to do artworks and other kind of projects.
Oh, I see. Oh, that's great. Just going back to the film, I wanted to ask you about two parts, and it's really towards the end of it. There's the one part where he's talking about amour, he's talking about love, and he has this wonderful expression where he says, he distinguishes between aprendido e aprendido, right? Like, o amor não pode ser aprendido, mas pode ser aprendido. And I just thought that was a really kind of...
Which song was it? Was Esotérico? Não adianta você me abandonar.
Exatamente, exatamente.
This song was talking about he was singing just alone with the... Okay, make the question.
No, that was one moment, and then I want to mention this other moment, and the question will kind of build on those two things. And then the other one was almost at the very end, right? It's basically the closing, observation that he makes, where he talks about a realidade, que é chocante, é feio. Reality is ugly and has all these other things, but it's also beautiful. There's, it's sempre assim, tem que ser assim, or something along those lines. I can't remember exactly his words or his phrasing, right? But I was just thinking about those as kind of two counterpoints in sort of the artistic, philosophical vision of Gil as situated in the film, right? And I was thinking about those two things and thinking about the present in which those interviews were made, which, correct me if I'm wrong, how long ago were those interviews made?
1 year.
Okay. So clearly within the Bolsonaro regime, right? Clearly within the Trump regime, clearly within all the horrific...
Wasn't so bad by this time.
Oh, right.
Last year, things went much worse.
Yeah. So, I'm just thinking...
Yeah, it was influenced by that, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, for me, a really rich moment, because it was like, here's this person looking back on their musical and artistic life and thinking about those other spheres of Gil as a, liberdade digital and other things that he was interested in doing, right? Even writing critical essays at different points, right? Here he is reflecting on the past, but then also there's like this kind of, reflection of a present at the same time, right? And it was for me, a wonderful moment that just reminded us of how, we experience the past from our presence in some ways. Yeah. And I was just wondering if you could maybe, if there's other things that have maybe occurred to you or that, struck you since making the final cut of the film, in which, is there something else that's speaking to there beyond that, or there's other things resonating with you since you kind of put that all together? Or
perhaps what you were talking before, space and time doesn't exist anymore. Like, for example, if he makes it's a masterpiece. Aquele abraço is a masterpiece. It's gonna be space and time forever. Like, he has the power to capture and condensate in a song that's gonna travel forever. And he's a master. He's a Jedi. He's a guy that connects to something that is not for everybody, you know. And he has this power. He had this power when he was young, more than perhaps now, but he's a philosopher still. And when you say that, I always say the yin-yang. You know? He's a lot of philosophical about the Zen philosophy, the Tao philosophy. And about if it's very bad, it's going to generate something in reaction to that, and we live in a cycle. Never stays bad, everything's going to come, and then he really plays whatever he has in his hands. No, he's always very open. He receives, he listens to ideas, and so the sensation I got when you say when you ask something like that is that he really could transcend space and time, I think. And my goal in the film was really to get the gems that really touched me very deep in my heart, and that I could show to the new generation, like people that are 10 years old, people that are, perhaps they will never have the chance to really know Gil. And after this research, when you see him, it's very different when you see him very young singing a song than nowadays. The song's the same, but when you see him very young, so powerful, very in the potency of his manhood and everything, and then we remember that old genius, that old guy. Now one day he was really like Marlon Brando in his 20s. No, he was so beautiful, and I really am very glad that we can see that in the film.
Yeah. Well, I think so. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Lula. I mean, it was wonderful, and it's been a wonderful conversation with you too. Just hearing you, expand upon it, and just to hear more about the process of creating it. And I just want to thank you again for sharing the film with us, and for joining us for the conversation. It's been a real pleasure. And
it was my pleasure.
Looking forward to Volume 2 and Volume 3.